I seem to be on a real roll when it comes to my brand deep dives, and how appropriate, speaking of roll, because today we're going to be exploring the world of the ultimate luxury travel brand. I feel like you cannot really call yourself a real luxury connoisseur until you've taken an airport picture with one of these luggages and probably a Goyard tote on top, which is of course Rimowa. Now, I know that it's quite a controversial topic, whether you should invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in pieces of luggage that will really just end up looking banged up, or if you should spend your money elsewhere. But if you have ever wondered, if you have ever toyed with the idea of investing a serious chunk of money into a Rimowa suitcase, then this video is for you. Today we're going to be discussing everything that there is to know about Rimowa, from their history and heritage all the way to their current lineup, and also my personal experience and thoughts. So if this sounds interesting to you and you'd like to find out the truth about Rimowa, most importantly, if they are worth the money and the hype, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on marching. If you're new to my channel, you're probably not going to be familiar with my The Truth About series. In these videos, we get into the nitty-gritty and discuss everything that you need to know about some of the most popular luxury brands out there. Now, today's addition to the series is going to be quite different, not only because we are talking about a travel specific brand, but also because Rimowa is the first German brand that we are looking at. I'm pretty sure that every single brand, or almost every single brand that we looked at so far in this series, have been French. I think with the exception of Loro Piana. Now, if you would like to learn more about some other luxury brands, I will make sure to have a playlist linked down below for you. But without further ado, let's get into exploring the world of Rimowa. And of course, we have to start at the very beginning, because Rimowa actually started out as a small family business in 1898 in Cologne, Germany, where the brand's headquarters actually still resides today, even though Rimowa is at this point owned by LVMH, so the luxury conglomerate, the extremely famous luxury French conglomerate that owns, I think, 75 brands, or over 75 luxury brands, including Rimowa. Rimowa to this day is very proud of their German heritage and their German roots, and every single one of their pieces is still designed in Germany today. Now, obviously, the brand has gone through quite a few changes in the past 120 something years, except their goal, they still live by their original goal, which was to offer expert travel solutions for expert travelers and create true innovation. That's something that Rimowa has been very passionate about, being courageous enough to innovate, especially innovate in a field that's kind of stale and can feel rather dull. Rimowa always tries to bring the latest and greatest to their customers. But something that I have to mention here is that their suitcases that they offer today really have nothing in common with the original trunks that they started out with, except this courage to innovate. Of course, it's something that they are incredibly proud of, because most brands that started in the early 1900s, they catered to a very different clientele. Obviously, at the time, the lucky few who could afford to travel and see the world did so on ships and trains, and while they had no shortage of trunk makers to choose from, Rimowa still stood out from the crowd for their precision and added details that made the overall experience of traveling just a little bit easier. From the outside, their trunks might have not been able to compete with the elaborate designs offered by historic houses like Louis Vuitton or even Moina. Both of those brands, by the way, at this point are owned by LVMH, and obviously so is Rimowa. So they might have not been able to compete with their really ornate details on the outside. The inside of Rimowa trunks is what differentiated them, because Rimowa introduced a patented dustproof steel frame that ran along the edges of the cases and created a system of hangers and drawers. So as you probably would have guessed, the historic luxury maisons at the time, so Louis Vuitton, Moina, and even Goyard, they put a lot of thought and effort into creating trunks that were as beautiful as possible, and of course they were hard wearing and functional, but the inside of these trunks was really left quite bare, unlike Rimowa suitcases, or Rimowa trunks I should say, which might have not looked as pretty as a Louis Vuitton trunk, but on the inside they were a lot more user friendly, and they featured details that made the traveler's life a lot easier. And it's something that Rimowa still stands by today. They always like to make sure that their pieces are not only hard wearing, durable and practical, but they also are precisely designed with the end user's true needs in mind. But it wasn't until the 1920s, when the founder's son, Richard Morsack, took over the brand, that the house became a true tastemaker by producing the world's first ever suitcase fully crafted from aluminum, which is of course the look and the feel that Rimowa is still known and loved for today. And just in case you didn't guess, Rimowa is actually an acronym for the founder's son's name. So Richard Morsack, the first two letters in his name are I, and then the first two letters of his last name are what you can still find in the Rimowa brand name today. And then the WA actually comes from the German word for trademark. So that's where the Rimowa name comes from. It is made up of the founder's son's initials and their original trademark application, which was, I believe, filed in Berlin. Not that it really matters, but I just remember coming across that detail while I was doing research for this video. So that's where the Rimowa name comes from, in case you ever wondered. But anyway, going back to their infamous suitcases, Richard was actually inspired by state-of-the-art materials and finishes used during the infancy of aviation. And he figured that if these materials are strong enough to withstand turbulence while carrying precious cargo and passengers in the air, it's only fitting to use the very same material for the ideal travel companion of all passengers, which is how the grooved aluminum suitcases became synonymous with luxury travel. They were actually inspired by airplanes. Now, at this point, Rimowa offers several different finishes and materials, but something that you'll notice as the brand signature touch is the grooved detailing. It's something that they use across the board on every single one of their creations. It's imprinted on everything that they do. And their classic anodized aluminum suitcases are still very much around, considering that it's thought of as the most durable yet lightweight material that's been trusted by prize-winning journalists who traveled the most exotic corners of the world, musicians with their one-of-a-kind instruments, photographers traveling through extreme climates with sensitive equipment, and of course the rich and famous with their wardrobes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in some cases wine and watch collections, which all of these things Rimowa creates specialized travel solutions for. So as you can tell, Rimowa has a very long-standing history and heritage of creating the best of the best when it comes to travel essentials. And without further ado, let's move on to the different materials and the different styles that Rimowa offers today. I feel like we have no choice but to start with their aluminum suitcases, not only because according to reports, half of their sales still come from aluminum luggages, but also because that's what the brand is best known for. So we're going to be discussing the different pros and cons of each one of their materials and styles. Well, not every single style, but I'll definitely point out some of my favorites and the ones that I have personal experience with. Now, when it comes to my experience with aluminum trunks, I have owned both aluminum and plastic suitcases from Rimowa, but my most used case from them is the cabin luggage, so my carry-on, which I own in black aluminum, and it is a style that's offered both in plastic and in metal. We'll move on to the plastic one in just a bit, but before we do that, let's talk about some of the pros of their aluminum suitcases, which of course the first one is that they are known for being extremely durable. In fact, rumor has it that in the 1930s, one of the Rimowa factories burned down, and the only things that withstood the fire were already completed and already fully manufactured aluminum luggages. They say that those were the only things that were left behind after the fire and everything else was completely destroyed. Now, I'm not sure how true that is. I wouldn't argue that these suitcases are bulletproof, but one thing is for sure that they are insanely long lasting, they are really safe, and they are quite lightweight considering how robust these suitcases feel. Now, another pro that I'm going to mention here, even though it's true about every single one of Rimowa suitcases, they have this penalty technology called the multi-wheel technology, which they have on every single one of their suitcases that comes with wheels. Unlike most suitcases that will feature 4 wheels, Rimowa suitcases actually have 8 wheels. So they have 2 separate wheels behind each other on all 4 corners, which actually move independently in a 360 degree, which makes the rolling experience completely smooth and extremely seamless. I feel like that is the biggest difference between Rimowa suitcases and other suitcases, other than the look and the design. The fact that they are so unbelievably easy to roll, and it is because of this special technology that their wheels offer, which you can actually have customized on their aluminum suitcases, which we'll definitely move on to in just a second. But before we do that, let's talk about some of the cons. The first one I have to say is that they are really, really heavy for a suitcase. Yes, they might be a little bit more lightweight than other metal trunks, but for a suitcase, relative in comparison to other suitcases, they are really, really heavy, which is of course an issue if you are a big packer and you like to take a lot with you. If you really try to bring down the weight of your suitcases, I would not suggest investing in any one of their metal suitcases because they are really quite weighty. That's kind of the price you pay for this insane durability. And speaking of durability, while the integrity of the suitcases cannot really be jeopardized, one thing you have to keep in mind is that these aluminum suitcases will develop scratches and dents, which Rimowa claims is part of the charm. It adds character to the suitcases. Each and every single dent will have a story to tell. It's kind of the same as Hermes's heritage leather. You know, they say that, for example, Box and Berinia will develop patina, and it's something that should be embraced. You know, some people like it, some people do not. I am personally not the biggest fan of seeing suitcases covered in dents and marks, not to mention that aluminum suitcases that are coated, so for example their black suitcases will also chip, which I was not aware of. So if I could go back in time, I would still buy a Rimowa carry-on, except I would buy their aluminum suitcase in silver instead of the black version, because the black coating does chip and it goes for every single one of their colored suitcases. Speaking of which, another con is that aluminum suitcases don't come in a huge range of different colors. They have their classic colors, which is of course silver and black. As I pointed out, personally I prefer their silver colorway, but they also offer seasonal colors. So currently I think they are doing an emerald green finish, and then there's also kind of a bronzy, I think they are calling it a titanium color. So there are a handful of different shades, but silver and black are the ones that you will find every single season. And then another con is of course the price. These suitcases are quite expensive, but if you're a fan of aluminum suitcases, there are 2 core collections that you have to be aware of. So you have the original collection, which is the one that I own, which is a little bit more sleek, it's a little bit more modern and contemporary, and it also features flat handles. To me, that is the biggest difference, and also the edges are a little bit more rounded. And then they have their heritage inspired suitcases, which are called the classic trunks or the classic cases, which are also made of aluminum. They are slightly more bulky, they are a little bit more rectangular, and then from the outside, something that you will immediately notice is that the handles are actually made of leather. But what's great about the classic suitcases is that you can actually have these customized. So you can choose different leather handles, you can choose different colors for the wheels. So if you really want to play around with a Rimowa suitcase, I would suggest opting for the classic suitcase and playing around with the different customization options. But personally, I am partial to the original line. To me, it just feels a little more sleek and modern. And in terms of pricing, there really isn't a huge price difference between the two. They both start at just around $1,400 and they go up to $2,400 for a larger check-in luggage or one of their trunks. As sleek and as aesthetically pleasing as aluminum suitcases are, I have to admit they are really quite weighty. So while I do prefer those for a carry-on or for a cabin case, when it comes to check-ins, ones that where you really want to maximize not only the capacity of the suitcase, but you also want to decrease the weight as much as possible, I would personally opt for one of their plastic suitcases, which are made of polycarbonate. It is an extremely lightweight yet durable plastic that Rimowa first introduced over 20 years ago in 2000, and there are two core lines that we're going to be discussing here, the so-called essential line and the essential pocket line. Rimowa has a lot more for you to choose from, but I do think that the essential line is the one that is sort of just standard for Rimowa collectors. So when it comes to trunks and cabin suitcases, sorry, not cabin suitcases, trunks and check-in luggages, which are offered in several different sizes, in medium, large, and I think large plus, I would definitely opt for one of their essential suitcases, which the line also includes some cabin luggages in some really beautiful and fun colors. Now, the first pro when it comes to these suitcases is how lightweight they are, which makes them unbelievably easy to carry around and roll around the airport. They are dent and scratch resistant, which of course is a huge pro when it comes to suitcases that you just don't want to worry about. I feel like when it comes to traveling, the last thing you want to worry about is what state your suitcase is going to end up in after a long trip. So I really appreciate that these suitcases are pretty dent and scratch resistant. The only thing you have to worry about is that they can actually split if you pack them too much or if you are way too rough with them, but they are known for being incredibly durable. And as I mentioned, they are offered in a wide range of different colors and even finishes. So these suitcases either come in a glossy or a matte finish, and Rimowa also comes out with seasonal colors, which can be quite fun. Now, moving on to the cons, as I mentioned, these suitcases can split and break, but that doesn't happen often unless you really drive over these suitcases with a car or you use them inappropriately. It's not something that I would worry about, but it's still something I wanted to put out there because, as I mentioned, none of these suitcases are completely indestructible and they might not look quite as sleek as an aluminum case, but it is kind of a different look and feel. But if you love sort of the best of both worlds, if you would like to buy a hybrid suitcase while you're in luck, because Rimowa also offers so-called hybrid suitcases where the body of the case is made up of plastic, so it makes them inherently more lightweight, but the corners are reinforced and so is the frame with their incredible steel technology. So you have plenty to choose from when it comes to the Rimowa lineup. But I would say that if you are investing in a cabin, I would opt for one of their aluminum suitcases. And if you are looking for a check-in luggage, definitely don't overlook their essential line. And my personal favorite color is their red and their shade of blue that is currently available. As you can probably tell, I am a huge fan of Rimowa suitcases and I do think that they are worth the money. Not to mention that they come with a lifetime warranty at this point. So if you bought a Rimowa suitcase in the past couple of years, or if you are buying a Rimowa suitcase now, at this point they do come with a lifetime warranty, which I can completely understand because these suitcases will really last a lifetime. So in my opinion, they are a great luxury investment, not a financial investment, but they're a great investment into your wardrobe because these are things that you will be able to use for decades to come. I do love how easy they make your life. The travel experience with these suitcases is really just extremely seamless. The one thing that I don't love about these suitcases is their flexi pack system. So unlike other suitcases that usually come with two compartments with a zip feature, Rimowa has this system that allows you to move around the two halves of the suitcase, which I don't always love, but that is a small price to pay for how seamless they make the overall experience look and feel. I do love the look of their suitcases. I do think that they are really quite elegant without becoming obnoxious. And considering how long you have these pieces in your collection, I do think that the price can be justified, although they do have some more sort of exotic pieces. So if you are really into your collectibles, Rimowa of course has some wonderful solutions for you. Some of their most exclusive pieces that I have seen is their vanity case, which is quite new. They recently re-released their iconic vanity case, which I feel every single Instagram influencer was gifted in the recent past. They do have a chest set. They even have a bottle case. You can either buy a bottle case for a single bottle of wine or champagne, which kind of makes sense if you think about the fact that LVMH not only owns luxury brands but also liquor brands. So they not only have this single case for a single bottle of wine or champagne, but they also have this trunk specifically designed for your wine collection, which I think is supposed to fit something like 12 bottles of wine. And it can be yours for just under $10,000. And my personal favorite piece, which if I was a watch collector, this is something I would definitely invest in. They do have an aluminum watch case, which I do think is incredibly fun. And if you are into your watches, or if you have someone in your life who's really into their watch collection and you're looking to treat them to perhaps a Christmas gift, this is something I would highly encourage you to look into, because I do think that it is an incredibly special piece. But this actually brings us to the end of today's video on Rimowa. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was able to answer some of your questions. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Tell me what your experience has been like with this brand. Do you own any Rimowa suitcases? Would you consider owning one? Do you think that they are overpriced? I cannot wait to hear from you in the comment section. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And don't forget to let me know what brand we should do a deep dive on next. But I just really appreciate you being here and watching, and I cannot wait to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.